Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest in the Phase 3 Meet series. My absolute pleasure this week to have as our guest, Dean. Dean, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know, Dean has held various senior leadership positions in software companies like KDS and Primavera. He was the youngest vice president in nearly 30 years at Oracle, which is clearly some going. The former CEO of Core HR, and then led the sale of Core earlier this year to the Access Group, and now sits in the position of president of Access People. Wow, that's some going, Dean.
Yeah, it's been a busy 15 years or so.
You've achieved all of that in 15 years.
Maybe a bit more. Yeah.
Yeah, see, now you're making us all feel a little bit small. No, thank you again for joining us. Honestly, I'm really looking forward to this. For those of the viewers who don't know about the Access Group, could you please just give us a bit of an overview of what you guys are all about, and I'll just maybe include a little bit about the HR bit and the core HR acquisition as well, please.
Yeah. No problem. So Access is strangely one of the UK's best kept software secrets. Access is probably the largest privately held software company. Active in the UK and Irish markets, predominantly serving what you might call as the UK mid-market with a broad set of applications, everything from ERP, of course, the HCM component, and then some really verticalized solutions, focusing on, a number of different verticals like hospitality, not-for-profit, education, so some verticalized applications as well. And yeah, we came to be part of the Access Group by acquisition. Access acquired the company I was leading, Core HR, and used that as a moment to create the Access People division, which is the part of Access where all of the HR, HCM, learning and development, technology and services are all grouped together.
Okay, wow. So, like I say, I've done a bit of research. I knew of Access Group predominantly from the HR side, really, and some of the history there. But that's a bit of a mammoth organization now, then, isn't it?
Yeah, big company, over 400 million in turnover,
Wow.
growing really quickly.
There seems to be quite a lot of M&A activity in the kind of people tech, HR tech space. There's Kronos and Ultimate, Saba, Cornerstone. Obviously, you guys, Core HR Access. Do you think there's any particular reason for that at the moment, or is it just? I mean, historically, there's always been, hasn't there, in terms of acquisition? But there seems to be a big chunk of them all kind of grouped together at the moment.
Yeah, I think HR tech in particular is a crowded space. There's a lot of people in that category. It's an important category, of course. There's a lot of people in that category, and at the moment, there's this momentum around buying instead of building. I think 10, 15 years ago, we would have all tried to build these add-on components and capabilities, whereas now it's just a way of business that organizations often acquire their way into a customer segment or a product segment. Just more prevalent nowadays, and I don't think it's going to slow down. I think it will speed up, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting as well on the total opposite scale of that and side of that. There seems to be a new batch all the time, every kind of 2 quarters in terms of startups,
right,
in and around HR tech. So kind of whether it's AI, whether it's machine learning based, there's so much activity in this space that it kind of where do you think it's heading? Where do you feel HR tech is heading as a kind of as a software, as a sector?
I think it's what's really interesting is that, as our ways of working change, and as we think about kind of our careers changes, those kinds of macro level adjustments create new opportunities for new entrants, right? So well-being is a big part of the HR thought process at the moment. Of course, it ought to be, and given what we're all going through at the moment, it just makes it even more front of mind. So there's a whole range of well-being applications and technology now coming to the forefront, which will end up as part of organizations like ours, stack and offering. So because ways of working are going to carry on changing, because the ways of employing people will change, the way we compensate those people will change, the relationship between employer and employee is always changing. That stuff just keeps the kind of lifeblood of the HR tech space nice and fluent and nice and hot. So continued consolidation, I think, more innovation. It's a growing segment, which is good. And with all of these changes, I think it will keep us all on our toes.
Yeah, absolutely, Paul. And most of the phase 3 meet series that I've done have all been with really exceptional kind of leaders in businesses, and I've been doing a little bit of digging. And I'm not going to bring out a brother or anything. Don't worry, it's not one of those shows. And I've been doing a bit of digging, and honestly, I want to drill down on your personal story. We will come back to a bit of HR tech as well, because obviously it's key to us at phase 3. But I find your story really, really inspirational, very, very uplifting as well, actually. And I just want to start this. Can you explain how it felt when you were told, that moment when you were told that you were not going to make it, I guess is the term, as a professional footballer?
Yeah, I remember it. I remember it like it were yesterday. I mean, it was a Friday evening. I remember the restaurant table where the guy who was helping me as my agent finally broke the news. He said, look, we've been trying to get you a new club. I'd been up and down the country on trials and had various terrible offers from different football clubs. And he just said, look, you're in too much debt to continue this phase of trying out, and 2-month contract, 3-month contracts on very little money. You're in too much debt. You need to get to work and service this debt. And I've got a job for you. You can start on Monday morning with Motorola in Hounslow, I think it was at the time.
And how old are you at this point, Dean? Sorry,
20, maybe 19.
Wow.
19.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
19. So yeah, it hit me like a truck. Absolutely hit me like a truck. But what do? You have to life and get over it, really.
And what was that transition like in terms of kind of I can imagine, but shattered dream to what do I do? Yeah, you had a job, or your agent could get you a job, but the mindset, you must have struggled with that.
Was horrible. It was absolutely horrible. It's one of the 3 lowest points in my life, and it was everything. It was the end of a lifelong dream, and I did well at school, mandatory school, but not as well as I ought to have done, because I didn't intend on using school for anything. So it was the end of a lifelong dream. My entire social circle was designed around football, so all of my friends were footballers. Everything we did had some relation to football. So I almost extracted myself from that group deliberately, because I just couldn't take being amongst them and hearing that they were playing against, West Ham tonight, and somebody else had Arsenal at the weekend. And so I had to take myself out of that group. And then, showing up at Motorola, which was, I was making cold calls. That was the job. And we used to sit on these long tables in this room with no window, with a leader at the time who would scream at people unceremoniously across the room and rip phones out of the wall if people weren't doing the right pitch. And you had an 8-hour day with 45 minutes for lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. And a week before, I was training for 2 hours in the middle of the day. And so it was difficult.
I mean, the mental strength that it must have took to, like you say, not only is it the football side, but then it's the friendship bit as well, and extracting yourself from that group, and then going to such a totally different environment. I mean, that environment you spoke of there was probably my first working environment, so kind of it could only get better from that point of view. But yours was a totally different thing. And you talked about debt there as well. I'm just trying to understand, just for those people watching who might be in a similar situation, what you have to put pounds and pence on it, but the level of debt, how did you accumulate that debt, as I'm trying to understand, as a kind of 18, 19, 20-year-old? I'm just trying to...
Because then, and it's not too dissimilar now, but the borrowing potential of an aspiring young footballer is well beyond what it ought to responsibly be. Right? So when you're offered credit cards and debit cards and back then checkbooks and overdraft facilities, because of course you're going to get another contract for 20 times what you're earning now. So don't worry about this stuff. It will take care of itself once you sign your next deal. You're a 19-year-old kid, with an active social life and everything that goes with that. And around friends who were doing very well at football. Actually, they were, 19, they were in the first team earning crazy money. So you wanted to keep up with those guys. And I owed just under £90,000 at that moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I didn't have a single thing. The clothes, I had a lot of clothes, but
had a lot a lot of designer clothes, no doubt. But I mean, it's honestly, it's an interest, and it's a bit of a side issue, but allowing young adults, not children, I suppose at 18, 19, but young adults to potentially have so much debt. We all know you don't know what date is at 19.
Right.
Realistically, you don't.
No.
You think you might do. I was at uni thinking I was, the bee's knees, and it just doesn't work like that, does it?
No.
And there needs to be a huge change there, doesn't there?
There ought to be, but there probably won't be. And for me, it was a bit worse because we grew up with very, very little, right? So as I grew up in the area I grew up, we had next to nothing. So you hit 17, 18, and suddenly there's all of these bright lights. And I think that's really the problem with it. Football's still a working class sport to a degree. So when young people see those bright lights with very little, barriers to obtain, only disaster can happen from that, right? Unless you end up as Raheem Sterling or a great professional, only disaster can come from that.
Okay, so you're at Motorola, and you must be thinking now, okay, what do I do now? This is an immediate job. At what point did you realize you wanted to kind of go into the kind of corporate world, or did you think, actually, I'm good at this? I'm good at cold calling at that time, or and maybe business development, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I hated Motorola with a passion, but what I hated more than Motorola was being in that room and not being respected or not being as good as everybody else in that room. So the only thing I really thought about, I didn't think about my career or how to climb a ladder or ending up in this spot now. I just thought about making sure that everybody in that room would respect me at some point for being good at my job. And I focused on that, and then that went well, and it led me on to other things and opportunities.
Okay, and what kind of challenges have you had to face? We mentioned it, or I mentioned in the intro, that you obviously the youngest vice president in nearly 30 years at Oracle, right. And I know from setting up phase 3 when I was 24, walking into a room to meet with HRDs or see this, that, and the look at you, think, really, he's a kid, and that was then, but I'd imagine you must have faced similar kind of challenges.
Oh yeah, of course. And sometimes, and even looking back on it now, you can excuse people, right? Because I would go to Network Rail. I remember we did a £4 million deal with Network Rail, which was a huge deal by anybody's measure, and we were negotiating with the program manager and CIO at the time. And I turned up with my team, and he assumed that everybody else was me. He kind of worked down the line, thinking to himself, of all of the people that might be in charge here, it has to be the young guy in the ill-fitting suit. It can't be him. So I had that to deal with every now and then. But honestly, I never wasted a moment thinking about that stuff. I was never offended by it. I never wasted a second thinking about it.
Any other kind of challenges, maybe from a kind of racism issue or perspective?
And obviously it's Black History Month, and with everything going on in the world at the moment, that question is rightfully prevalent. And I know a lot of people that have had their journeys interrupted, disturbed by those types of issues. And honestly, I never really have, right? I've never really experienced that in the workplace. I've had the occasional well-intended but offensive joke, and you deal with that in a second. We say, something that's not a phrase we use, or I'd prefer if you didn't, and it goes away. I had one incident, and I told this story recently on something else, where the CIO of a major global household brand, who I met with, refused to allow me into the meeting room. Right?
Oh my goodness.
This meeting can take place, again with my team, but Dean isn't. I don't want Dean in the meeting room. So that was a very, very difficult moment. Long time ago now, but very difficult moment.
But very blatant as well.
Yeah. We'd exchanged over email and telephone, and actually we were getting on very well, building up to the moment we were going to meet in person in Germany. That's where that's where he was located and where this business was located. And we traveled, and pretty much as soon, because then you didn't have the ability to stalk people online like you have now. So he was surprised, when I turned up, and he kind of vanished and came back out and said that the meeting could only take place if I wasn't allowed in the room.
Well, I mean, there's various stories I've heard in terms of kind of in the HR space of certain companies and so on. But my own direct experience, Dean, similar to yours, very kind of nuanced, kind of small throwaway comments. And you can do one of two things with them. You can either like, whoa, what's all that about? Or you can deal with them and kind of try to educate. And like you said, we don't use that term, or we don't speak like that. And a few much more blatant ones as well. I remember it was just before I set up Phase 3. I was working in a different company in Cheshire, and it was just post 9/11, and it wasn't a good time to be saying, "Oh, hi, it's Assad Ahmed calling from blah 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 company."
Right.
And I was quite young. That must have been 21, 22 at the time, so I didn't really know how to deal with it either, other than get angry.
Right.
Like you do at that age, I suppose. And there's been a few other kind of issues since then, but I think it's creeping back into society, and I've, on previous videos, I've asked the question. Everyone's been really happy and kind of doing the 8 o'clock NHS kind of. People have seemed to have come together. Right. What's going to happen post COVID? Are we going to just revert back to type?
Right.
And the whole Brexit debate kicks off again, and all this kind of stuff. And I think it's interesting. I'd like to get your view on that, because I, for one, already feel that it's kind of just. I live in Oldham, Manchester,
right.
A very kind of socio-economically deprived area. I think it's top of the charts in kind of worst areas to live and all this kind of stuff. And part of various Facebook groups, whenever people see a group of lads together, it's like, oh, they're up to no good. They're doing this, whether they're Asian, whether they're black, so on and so forth. But if it's a bunch of white kids, they're just riding a bike. They're just and they're making these comments on Facebook groups and this, that, and the other. And it's hard to. I often get involved in kind of exchanges with them, but you just know it's leading you nowhere.
Yeah.
Leading you nowhere. But education is so important.
Yeah, I think that for me, and again, I don't want to underplay the experiences of others, because I know a lot of people, some of whom I know, some of whom I know of, have had some terrible experiences related to race. So I don't want to underplay that at all. But I do think that both sides have an obligation and have a responsibility to have an open-minded conversation. That that's all I really ask for, and that's all I think it will take to cure some of these issues, because I just don't believe as many people are badly intended as they sometimes come across. Now, of course, you have some real idiots and some real bigots who have some real tragic frames of mind and perspectives. But I think 90% of the other offense that is caused is probably not intended to offend in the manner it was delivered, and can probably be adjusted with a conversation. I've never had an issue when I've said to somebody, whoa, hang on a second, hit the brakes. That phrase is really, really offensive, and here's why. I've never had anybody look back at me and say, well, I'm going to continue to use it, or I'm going to continue to speak that way, and you just need to, get up. I've never had that. but I've never attacked. You know, when I mean, there were some phrases, right, which have caused me to be a little more sharp in my reaction. But otherwise, I never attack. I assume that the person, I give them the benefit of the doubt, and then I explain why.
Yeah.
And more often than not, we're able to move on a little bit. And that's my great hope, that now we're talking about it. Now people are saying it.
Yeah.
That we might see some improvement. I had an interesting thing the other day, which might be sharing, where that story I just described about the CIO and where I wasn't allowed into the meeting. I shared that story with the Access board, right? With the board of directors at Access, 2 minorities on that board. And it was such a rich conversation, hearing the perspectives of others who would never be in that situation, but also hearing their surprise that something like that could happen, right? And watching them say that occurrence was unimaginable to them until they heard it from me was quite a nice moment, because now there's essentially I think 16 white individuals saying, wow, we never even thought that was as close to home as you just described.
Yeah.
And a few of them saying, well, actually, it's going to make me think a little bit more about, my conduct and how things I say and do can be interpreted. That's a great outcome, right? That's a great, because now the conversation's happening.
Exactly. And if that one conversation, a life experience that you had, can be shared with just 16 people there, or 17, including yourself, I suppose, they then share it with another 17 people. It's flowing, isn't it? It's moving. It's making a change.
It's suddenly a positive, not accusational. There's no aggression in it.
Absolutely.
I think it's a good
Absolutely. Now, you've recently set up the Forbes Family Group. So why don't you just explain what that is, what kind of activities you guys get involved in, because that leads kind of very nicely from where we've just been talking and what I want to kind of go to after this. So just explain to us what the Forbes Family Group is all about.
So FFG, which is something my wife and I started, we've always invested, my wife and I. So as my career has progressed, we've always tried to be smart with making investments. So this year we took the decision to put that activity into a structure, but also to use that structure to do some other things. So it's one part continuation of our investments. It's another part, trying to invest in and support entrepreneurs from a similar social economic background to ourselves. So, we might invest over here for pure gain as a very textbook investor, but here we invest to support and kind of lift up entrepreneurs. And then we do what I call social investing, which isn't really investing. It's just where we get behind causes that we believe in. So during COVID, we had a push to feed and clothe 1,000 babies, 1,000 children. And we did that because we realized that the queues at supermarkets were getting longer and longer, which meant single parents who had multiple children, couldn't go and stand in a Tesco queue for 2.5 hours to get in. It just wasn't feasible. So as a result, they were kind of struggling. So we, worked with some suppliers, and we got supplies and we distributed.
Brilliant.
We do that kind of stuff where we want to help primarily parents are in similar situations to the ones our parents were in.
Wow, that's fantastic. So it's kind of handing the ladder down a little bit, certainly from the investments point of view, and obviously you mentioned about the entrepreneurs there as well. Do you think there's still a barrier to entry in terms of coming from a bit more of a perhaps disadvantaged background in the world of business?
Yeah, of course, and that's primarily the reason we set up Forbes Family Group, because we're in such a great position. We've been so fortunate that we wanted to roll that back to the communities that we're from in some way, shape, or form. Because there's no point screaming at Boris Johnson for not doing more if we're not doing as much as we can ourselves. But there's definitely a barrier to entry. If an organization hires on education and degree education, people like us are disproportionately underrepresented in the better schools, although Oxford and Cambridge are doing a lot of work to address that. So we're just never really going to get a seat at the table, right? And it's those kinds of things that need to be looked at and thought about and addressed. They create barriers to entry.
And I think, do you what advice would you give to a young kind of entrepreneur, or someone who wanted to kind of go up the corporate ladder? What advice would you give somebody? What's the kind of maybe your top 3 tips?
Yeah, so in Forbes Family Group, we have Project 10, which is where we take 10 young people and prepare them for work. So that's everything from education, workplace etiquette, like they're going into workplace for the first time. So we teach them how to behave in a workplace. And we try to give them advice. And the thing I always say to them is, you have to own the entirety of your journey. Like, you have to own the entirety of it. Right? Don't look at anybody else, anything that happens to you. Assume it was your fault. That should be your first reaction, that you are completely accountable for every single thing that happens to you.
Yeah.
Because I think people are too ego, and society now is changing in this direction to distribute blame and accountability too widely. I've taken every single thing that has happened to me personally, and I've always assumed it was entirely my own doing, and I think it just empowers me to be able to address those things. So that's number 1, 2, and 3 for me. Take accountability.
Yeah, honestly, I echo and agree with that so much. I think, responsibility for your actions, both positive and negative. I think there is in the younger generation in particular, there's it seems too easy now to kind of default to blame.
Right.
It's always easy to blame somebody else. He did that, she did that. I tell my kids the same thing. I do football coaching, FA level 1 and under 13s. And so we were doing a bit of fitness. This is Wednesday just gone. And they're doing a couple of sprints against each other. And they're all looking left and right, to see where they're up to.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't run looking that way. You can't run in a straight line. You just focus on what you are doing.
Right.
And then if you finish second, third, you can see, okay, why did I finish second or third? What changes can I make? What can I do to improve?
Absolutely.
But if you're looking constantly left or right, you just can't run.
Right.
And it's a very good analogy for life, isn't it, really? I think, because you've just got to be focused, on that thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So shifting back to HR tech then, what can we expect to see, Dean, from Access people over the next year or so? I was on the Access All Areas webinars, very excited to see some of the stuff that's coming out, but I'll let you kind of explain that.
It's such an exciting time for Access and Access people. I mean, it's a £112 million business at the moment, just the HR tech and L&D tech and services piece of Access, which we want to treble over the next few years. One of the big drivers for that is going to be how we bring together all of the different HCM and learning and development technology that we have in the group, because it's quite vast. How we bring that together and start to connect it and allow it to interoperate with each other, so that we can deliver a bigger footprint to our customers. So we have customers who start with us on learning, and then they upgrade and take payroll, and then they take HR, and then they take some of our pay on demand capability, like early pay. So there's so much there for us to take that customer on a journey. So that one of the things we're focused on now is knitting all of that together in a nice way, so that the customer experience is great, because nobody else has that breadth, right? There's nobody else in the UK market that has the breadth that we have. So that's one aspect. And then the other is M&A. Access is incredible M&A business. And we've got our eye on a few HCM and learning targets that I expect to execute on in the next 3 to 6 months. So there'll be more
brilliant,
more announcements, more things coming into the fold, more products and more capability. I mean, it's so busy and so exciting.
It must be a super exciting time for you, not only in your Access people role, but obviously with Forbes Family Group and everything you're doing there, honestly. And I think I said at the start, but I think it's a very inspirational and uplifting story. And I think it's a case of, shattered dream to change dream, and you can still achieve what you want to achieve in life.
Absolutely.
And it's the measurement of that success, isn't it? Really, so honestly, I think it's fantastic. I really do. I know you're pushed for time, so we're going to go on to the quick fire round. And I'm going to ask you a couple of well, more than a couple actually,
Okay.
questions, and you can answer in one word. You can answer in however you want to. Okay.
All
You
right.
ready?
Let's do it.
Cool. Okay. Which app do you spend the most time on?
Twitter,
Twitter.
probably, or email. Twitter, probably.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very
What's your favorite boy band?
favorite. Do those exist anymore? What's my favorite boy band?
You can go back to kind of the noughties or the 90s.
Wow, favorite boy band. Um, favorite boy band. New Edition, Bobby Brown. If anybody remembers Bobby Brown, who was married
Bobby
to Houston.
Brown.
Yeah.
It's just his prerogative.
There you go.
Okay. Which two guests, dead or alive, would you invite to a dinner party, family excluded?
Steve Jobs.
Definitely.
Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali.
Okay.
Oh,
Why do you want to explain a little bit why?
I'm just a Steve Jobs. What's the Stan? Like I'm just a raving crazy fan of his and everything he did and the way he did stuff and the way he changed life, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah.
So really fascinated by him, and the same with Muhammad Ali, because the thing I learned from Muhammad Ali is the importance of the messenger, because in my social circle, many of the things that Ali believed have existed as discussion points in my social circle, and I never really paid them any attention. But suddenly, when I heard Ali articulate it, it resonated with me, because he was, the champion of the world, public figure. He had everything to lose by taking the positions that he took, but still took them. And it suddenly made me realize, Jesus, my friends have been saying this stuff to me for years, and I didn't want to hear it, but now I hear it from. So it just taught me the importance of of the messenger, and he was so talented and classy.
Oh, absolutely. Brilliant answers. Okay. Which superhero best describes you?
Oh, well, I don't know if they best describe me, but I like Batman and Iron Man, because there's the whole kind of tech,
Okay. Should kids be allowed to play British Bulldog?
Yes.
In the playground?
Yes. They should. They should run into each other as well, and they should fall over.
Yeah.
Because that's welcome to life.
Absolutely. The lessons it gives, it's interesting that all these things about, I saw on Twitter, actually, a guy giving demo, I think it's in his back garden with his son, I assume. The best thing to do is somebody pulls a knife out on you.
Okay.
And he pulled a knife out and he legs it. Because that is the best thing to do. It could be a gun, it could be whatever. Yeah. Just leg it.
Right.
And at games like British Bulldog and all this taught you how to leg it, how to run, how to swerve people, do you know what I mean?
Right.
And you can have as many lessons as you want, but these lessons learned on the playground, on the way to school, on the way back to school.
Shame. I think it's such a shame that we're so cautious and over-parenty with our kids nowadays, right? When I was growing up on our estate, there was like this football pitch in the middle of it, and the games would be 30 against 30, and the age range would be 4 to 19, and you'd get tripped over, you'd get the odd knee in the head, you'd probably kick the ball every 6 minutes or something, maybe longer. But it taught you so much. I learned so much, like in that environment. I learned more in that environment than most others. So I just think it's a shame that we're stopping our kids being in those situations.
I read a few years ago that the school in Liverpool that Steven Gerrard and Wayne Rooney went to, I think there may be another professional football as well. They've actually stopped playing football in the play areas because somebody got hit on the face with a ball and it hurt them. And that's the school that produced Steven Gerrard and Wayne Rooney.
Right. I understand. Different parents have different points of view, and we all have to parent our kids how we deem it appropriate. But yeah, I send my kids into difficult situations and environments. I encourage them to put themselves in those, and I'm okay when they come home with a bruise or a bump, because I think there's a lesson in there somewhere.
Lesson in it. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Sticking to the football theme, Keane or Vieira?
Roy Keane. I think Vieira.
Oh, really? You're an Arsenal fan?
Best footballer, but Roy Keane, for me, is just the ultimate. The thing with Roy Keane is he wasn't as good as Vieira, in my opinion.
No, he wasn't.
But he achieved way more than his ability should have allowed him to achieve, and I think that tells you what he's made of up here more than anything else. So yeah, Roy Keane.
Talent without hard work.
Hard work. Yeah. Standards, right? Standards.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good. I agree with you, clearly. Okay. Arsenal Invincibles or United's 99 treble team?
Not even close. Invincibles. Wasn't a weakness in the team.
Based on what did they achieve?
To not
they won one trophy.
Not get beat in the league, which is the primary competition. This isn't even
No. This is getting interesting. This is getting interesting because how can you say that a team that won unprecedented 3 trophies, FA Cup, Champions League, Premier League, yeah, we lost a couple of games along the way, beat you boys in the semi-final of the FA Cup, by the way, is better than going through to win 1 trophy? How, on which scale is that better?
You said which team. You didn't say which was the more accomplished or higher achievement.
Okay. Yeah.
And the Invincible team didn't have a weakness. The Man United team that won the Champions League had it wasn't that strong a team. I'm trying to remember.
No, in the final, Keane and Scholes were suspended, but the team that won it was Beckham, Keane, Scholes, Giggs, Dwight York, Andy Cole, Yapstam,
David May. I think David May was that team.
I think that he played. I think it was Ronnie Johnson, Dennis Irwin, Gary Neville, of course.
Yeah, I think the Invincible team. If I could watch either one of those 2 teams, I'm watching Henry and Bergkamp.
Perez.
Yeah,
no, that was a silky team. That was a silky team. Cool. Final
penalties. Do you remember that team did the thing where they passed the penalty? Do you remember that, where they didn't strike the penalty on goal?
Yeah, but they messed it up, didn't they?
I know, but can you understand what's happening in that team's head?
The thinking behind it. That's
they were. This penalty opportunity is too easy. How can we complicate that team?
Next level confidence, isn't it? Basically, it's next level thinking.
Elite.
Yeah, no, it is. Absolutely. You're still not going to convince me, but yeah, fair enough. Okay, final question, Dean. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love your dog?
If 1 is I acknowledge it as a living being and therefore haven't murdered it, then it would be 2.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I follow Dean on Twitter, and some of the things he puts on about his dog that he's been clearly forced to bring into the Forbes household is Well, maybe there's some lessons there as well. We talk about lessons for kids and stuff. Maybe there's a lesson there.
My youngest daughter was petrified of dogs. I'm scared of dogs too, by the way. So I have a fear of dogs. But she was petrified. So if she saw a dog on the street, she'd literally run into oncoming traffic. And the dog could be 20, 30 feet away. She'd bolt into oncoming traffic. So we talked to her about how she was going to overcome that fear. And she said, maybe we should get a dog. And I didn't want a dog. I absolutely do not want a dog. But I couldn't have a child prepared to force herself out of her comfort zone and not support her. So we got a dog, and now she spends more time with the dog than anybody else in the house. So I'm happy to live with my fear of animals because she overcame something, and it's been an important journey for her.
Have you not overcome your fear?
So I no longer fear them, but I don't like them.
Yeah,
I don't like being.
Yeah, dogs, pets generally. I'm not it's a running joke in phase 3. Someone puts a picture of a dog or a cat, and they'll tag me in. I don't need to be tagged in. I
I'm just
don't get it. I just don't get it.
yeah, it's just not my thing. It's just not.
Yeah. Goldfish maybe at a push, but there you go. Dean, thank you so much. I'm gonna let everybody into a little secret here as well, because we did this recording previously. Well, we didn't do this recording previously. I thought I was going to do a recording previously, and like an idiot, I forgot to press record. So Dean very kindly took time out, second time, another kind of 45 minutes, an hour to record this. So honestly, respect you. Thank you very, very much for that,
No
Dean.
problem. No problem. It's been a pleasure.
Really
And thank you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
And like I say, there's a lot of good stuff online. Obviously, follow Access People, go online LinkedIn. You can follow them on Twitter, go on the website, and of course the Forbes Family Group as well. If people have any kind of plans for you, proposals, how should they get in touch with you, Dean?
On the website, forbesfamilygroup.com, or via Twitter. That seems to be where most of the proposals are manifesting at the moment. So yeah,
in 80 characters.
yeah.
That's some proposal. My kind of proposal. Less detailed, the better. Thank you so much, Dean. Take care, and yeah, we'll catch up soon. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Cheers. Bye bye.